Somebody said before the show, we're not worried about any of that stuff because Hollywood Boulevard will crush the coronavirus. Yes, 22 years, Dennis, can you believe it?
Well, and in honor of that, I actually dug up the calendar for the first Film Noir Festival in 1999.
Wow.
And I thought that before the show tonight, we would take a very brief walk down memory lane and read you the list of films and guests that we had. It opened on Friday, April 2nd, 1999, and our very first screening was The Narrow Margin.
And I remember Marie Windsor, Richard Fleischer, and Stanley Rubin were all
Wow.
here as guests.
And we followed that up with two great Dick Fleischer films, Armored Car Robbery and Violent Saturday.
That you were nuts because then you were like okaying triple bills every night. I think people were leaving here at like 1 o'clock in the morning every night.
We were actually doing triple features in some case. And then the next day we had Evelyn Keyes here in person for The Killer That Stalked New York.
And we must have shown something else with her, right? 99 River Street?
We did, in Kansas City Confidential. We showed two Phil Carlson films.
Wow.
The next screening was Tuesday, April 6th, and it is a screening that is kind of lives in infamy. We screened Born to Kill with Bob Wise here.
How many people were here that night for that screening?
Everybody here?
Wow.
There was an unannounced guest, the star of the film, Lawrence Tierney. Eddie, do you want to describe what happened?
I think if you're sitting in that back row, you might still be in the puddle that Lawrence Tierney. Oh no, it wasn't a puddle because he used a Prince of Egypt cup that he managed to pee into in the back row of the theater. Yeah, that was a legendary evening. Yes.
That was really amazing. I think Eddie wrote a kind of remembrance of that, which you can find
Yes,
online.
you can find it on my website. It's called The Big Leak. My night with the Noir Monster.
Yes, and it is an amazing story.
You interviewed Bob Wise that night.
I did.
Here on stage because I was babysitting Tierney in the back row, and then at a certain Dennis, I remember asked Bob Wise about the screenplay or something, or Bob was acting like he had conceived the whole thing.
Right.
And from the back row, Lawrence Tierney yells, "Hey Bob, who wrote the fucking script?"
That was followed by two Jules Desand films, Brute Force and Thieves Highway. And then the next night,
Memory lane here.
the wonderful Ann Savage joined us in person for Edgar G. Ulmer's classic Detour. And then, okay, this is how nuts we were. It was a Wednesday night, and at 9:30, we showed a Felix Feist triple bill. 3 bills, starting at 9:30, that ended at about 2:30 a.m.
And Tierney tried to force his way back into the theater for Devil Thumbs a Ride.
Right.
Yeah, and he did not get back in the theater.
Then
Several people went to the hospital.
Saturday, April 10th, my great friend Bud Bedecker was here with Rhonda Fleming for The Killer Is Loose.
I recall that Bud was actually kind of hitting on Rhonda that night.
I would not surprise me at all. Then that night we also screened 2 Russell Rouse films, Wicked Woman and The Thief, and we had 2 unexpected guests.
Yeah, Beverly Michaels, star of Wicked Woman, just walked into the theater to pay tribute to her late husband, Russell Rouse, who directed both of those films, and Herschel Burt Gilbert, the composer who did the music for The Thief, just walked in. That's why this festival still is, but was so great back then because these people would just show up. You didn't even know that they were still alive, and then the next thing you know, they're standing there talking to you.
And then I have to say, I'm just amazed at the treasure trove of guests that we had. Sunday, April 11th, we had Colleen Gray here in person for Nightmare Alley.
And that was the first time Nightmare Alley had been shown in decades. Now, of course, it's being remade by Guillermo del Toro. But Colleen, I remember, that was amazing. She had tears just streaming down her face when she watched that film because she couldn't believe that she was actually kissing Tyrone Power on screen.
After that, we showed two rare John Auer films, The City That Never Sleeps and Hell's Half Acre, another great Evelyn Keyes performance. Audrey Totter joined us in person after that on Wednesday, April 14th for Tension with Richard Basehart. Then we screened, again, that same night, we really were nuts, double bill of Try and Get Me, which is included in this year's festival in a beautiful new restoration.
Yep, and Ricky Jay was sitting right there because Cy Enfield, who made that film, was his mentor as a sleight of hand magician, because Cy Enfield was also a magician in addition to being a film director. And every time I showed that film, Ricky Jay came out and watched it to pay tribute to Cy.
If
really sweet.
you've never seen Try and Get Me, it is truly one of the most unique and unforgettable
Dennis,
films.
how am I going to follow this with this program now? I mean, come on. You're killing me with all this.
Amazing. We paired that with The Underworld Story with Dan Duryea. The next night we screened Desert Fury, starring Liz Scott, who did not join us that year, but I think she came the next year for Pitfall with Andre de Toth. And then we wrapped up with Murder by Contract and The Sniper, two kind of crazed serial killer noirs.
Well, Hitman and a serial killer.
Hitman
Two
is-
very different things, Dennis. Come on.
That was
It's all about motivation.
that was Film Noir year one, and we really had no idea that it would continue for 22 years, and we would have so many amazing guests and films, and that the Film Noir.
My book Dark City Dames grew out of that festival because of all those actresses who appeared here, then agreed to be interviewed at length for my book. So that was really great.
I'm going to hand it over to Eddie to introduce the film now, but I am just going to say one thing now at the start of Noir 22. None of this would have happened without you. You wrote the book. You guided this whole festival. So everybody, a huge round of applause for Eddie Muller. He has earned every accolade and more, and now he, with Alan Rohde and his Film Noir Foundation, is preserving, restoring, and getting some of the rarest of the noirs, the ones that we kind of only dreamed about screening in the early years, and now you're able to actually track down negatives and make new prints, which is amazing. So my hats off.
Fantastic. Dennis, how much do I love you? I'm going to give you a handshake.
All right, now I'm going to hand it over to Eddie.
Okay, thanks for indulging that trip down memory lane. One huge difference between the festival then and the festival now, and a huge difference between my approach to noir then and my approach to noir now, is this campaign has led me all around the world, searching for these films and meeting people in other countries and combing through their archives and learning about their versions of film noir. So when I wrote Dark City, The Lost World of Film Noir, it was a completely Hollywood-centric book, as though noir was exclusively an American phenomenon. I now know better, and that's part of what this year's festival is all about, showing the international side of things. My motivation in doing this is to share these great films, but also I'm a little disturbed by the rise of nationalism in this country and all around the world, and I felt that noir can show us what we all have in common, right? We're all fucked. I mean, basically, that's it, right? It's the same story everywhere. And when people get desperate and turn dangerous, yes, it is a bitter little world, and we all have that in common. So it's a unique program that you're going to see this year. I have tried to complement foreign film with a Hollywood-made film that's in the same vein, either subject-wise or style-wise or something. There is a similarity between the films. Tonight, the similarity is that both of these films that you're going to see are set in Argentina. You know Gilda, that is a flat-out classic. But the film that you are about to see is a real rarity. And back in 2008, I went to Buenos Aires and I met Fernando Martin Peña, the man who is credited with discovering the most complete version of Fritz Lang's Metropolis.
Wow.
So through Fernando, he has educated me about Argentine cinema, classic Argentine cinema, which was extraordinary, as the film you're about to see will attest. It is based on a novel written in 1938 by Nicholas Blake. It is one of the landmark novels of psychological suspense, even though it's really a detective story. Nicholas Blake was known for writing detective stories with a character, the protagonist was a character named Nigel Strangeways, very much a Sherlockian detective. But this book was very different because the first 2/3 of the book are the diary of a killer. The book famously starts with the lines, "I'm going to kill a man. I don't know who he is, but I am going to hunt him down and I am going to kill him." It is very, very noir. Nicholas Blake, I'm sure some of you are aware of this, was the pseudonym for the Irish poet laureate Cecil Day-Lewis, who is, yes, the father of Daniel Day-Lewis. And this book was justifiably a landmark in crime fiction. Until the discovery of this film and the resurrection of this film, people thought that the only screen adaptation of it was Claude Chabrol's movie called The Beast Must Die that was made in 1969. Roman Vignoli Barreto made this film 17 years earlier in Argentina. It really did not get international distribution, but it is a tremendous film. I've been so thrilled that by resurrecting this, when we showed it, the world premiere in San Francisco last month, Vignoli Barreto's son, Daniel, surprised me. He lives in Northern California. He came to the screening and gave a fantastic interview about his father's career. I showed the film in Seattle, and his grandson, the director's grandson, appeared at the screening in Seattle. So are there any Vignoli Barretos in the audience tonight? Because it seems to be a common theme now. He's actually from Uruguay. I'm hoping that the resurrection of this film and the film that we're showing tomorrow night, El Vampiro Negro, which he also directed, I'm hoping these kind of resurrect his reputation, his critical reputation internationally, because he was a supremely talented man, as you are going to see with the film that we're about to present. I want to thank our partners at the UCLA Film and Television Archive for this glorious 35mm restoration of the film. And also, of course, our friends at the Hollywood Foreign Press Association's Charitable Trust for their partial funding of this restoration. So thank you very, very much. We cannot accomplish these things without our partners and, of course, the folks who actually turn out to watch these movies, which is vitally important, more important than ever. If we're going to keep doing this, people need to see that these films will actually fill seats in actual theaters. So I thank you very much for deciding to come out. Despite everything that's on the news 24 hours a day, I hugely appreciate your being here to watch this film. And that's all I'm going to say. We're having a reception afterwards in the courtyard. I can't wait to hear what you think of this movie, but I am thrilled to present Narciso Ibáñez Menta in The Beast Must Die.